The massive space station hung in the dark void like a jeweled crown. Ships from hundreds of different worlds docked at its countless ports. Ambassador Elena Vasquez pressed her face to the small window of the human ship Olive Branch and watched the alien vessels with wonder. Some looked like flowing water made of metal. Others appeared to be grown rather than built. A few seemed to bend light around themselves. "First time seeing the Galactic Council station?" asked Captain Morrison from behind her. Elena nodded. "It's beautiful and terrifying." She was right to feel both emotions. The station was home to representatives from 847 different species. Each one had earned their place through centuries of space travel, trade, and diplomacy. Humanity was trying to become number 848. Elena straightened her simple blue uniform. Earth had chosen her carefully for this mission. She had been a soldier once, fighting in the African water wars. Then she became a diplomat, helping broker peace between the Mars colonies and the Luna Federation. She knew how to speak softly and how to fight hard. Today, she hoped only the first skill would be needed. The Olive Branch was small compared to the alien ships around it. Its hull was plain gray metal with simple markings. Other species used exotic materials that could phase through matter or absorb energy. Human ships looked like toys next to them. Elena knew this was exactly what Earth wanted the galaxy to think. "Ambassador, we're being hailed by station control," Captain Morrison announced. A voice came through the speakers. It spoke in perfect English, though the accent was strange. "Human vessel Olive Branch, you are cleared for docking at port 847C. Please follow the guidance beacons." Elena smiled at the port number, 847C. They were giving humanity the last available dock. The message was clear. You are the least important. Visitors here. The ship moved slowly through the controlled space around the station. Elena watched other vessels come and go. A HFY warship passed nearby, its red hull covered in weapon ports. The warrior species ruled a third of the galaxy through military might. Their ships always looked ready for battle. A Zephyrian trade vessel docked at a premium port near the station's center. The Zephyrians controlled most galactic commerce. Their ships were sleek and expensive, covered in precious metals. They made sure everyone knew how wealthy they were. Elena also spotted a Veiltar diplomatic cruiser. The ancient species had been traveling space longer than most others had existed. Their ships were works of art, beautiful beyond description. They considered themselves the wisest beings in the galaxy. These three species essentially run the Galactic Council, Elena's aide David Park said as he joined her at the window. The HFY provide military protection. The Zephyrians handle trade and economics. The Veiltar offer wisdom and historical perspective. "And they all think we're primitive children playing with rockets," Elena replied. David nodded. "The intelligence reports suggest they see us as curious but harmless. Our technology appears basic. Our military seems tiny. They think we've barely figured out faster than light travel." Elena touched the small communication device hidden in her collar. It connected her directly to Earth's most powerful quantum computers through technology the galaxy had never seen. Her simple uniform contained fibers that could stop energy weapons and deflect most alien scanning devices. The Olive Branch carried weapons that could crack a moon in half, though they were disguised as communication arrays. Humanity had learned long ago that appearing weak often provided the greatest strength. The docking procedure took 2 hours. Elena used the time to review her mission parameters one final time. Earth wanted 3 things: membership in the Galactic Council, access to alien technology and trade routes, and most importantly, peace. Humanity had spent centuries learning to control their violent nature. They wanted to join galactic civilization as partners, not conquerors. When the docking was complete, Elena gathered her small team. Besides David, she had brought Dr. Sarah, Kim, a xenobiologist who could speak 12 alien languages, and Commander James Walsh, her military attaché. They carried simple diplomatic bags and wore friendly smiles. The airlock opened, and they stepped onto the station. Elena had prepared for this moment, but nothing could have readied her for the reality. The main corridor stretched beyond sight in both directions. The ceiling rose so high it disappeared into shadows. Thousands of beings walked, floated, and crawled through the space. Some looked almost human. Others defied description. A tall insectoid being approached them. Its forearms moved with precise gestures as it spoke through a translation device. "Ambassador Vasquez, I am Sub-Administrator Clicktal. I will escort you to your quarters." Elena bowed slightly. A gesture she had learned was considered polite by most species. "Thank you, Sub-Administrator. We are honored to be here." Clicktal's head tilted in what might have been surprise. Most new species demand better accommodations immediately. The Rokari threw furniture when they saw their quarters last month. "We are grateful for any accommodations," Elena replied. As they walked through the station, Elena observed everything. The Kethvar military personnel moved in perfect formation, their red uniforms marking them as clearly as their aggressive postures. They looked at humans with barely concealed contempt. To them, Earth's tiny military was an insult to the concept of warfare. Zephyrian traders gathered in expensive clothing, discussing deals worth more than Earth's entire economy. They saw humans as potential customers at best, irrelevant at worst. Their wealth came from controlling resources across thousands of worlds. Earth had little to offer them. The Veiltar glided through the corridors like living shadows, their ancient eyes holding secrets from before humanity learned to use fire. They viewed humans as infants, taking their first steps into a vast universe. Interesting, perhaps, but hardly important. "Your quarters are in section C847, Clicktal announced as they reached a modest door. "The formal hearing for your membership application will begin tomorrow, at the start of the standard day cycle." Elena thanked their guide and led her team inside. The rooms were small but clean. The furniture had been adjusted for human physiology, though it remained uncomfortable. Everything about their treatment said the same thing. "You are the least among us." That evening, Elena stood on the small balcony attached to their quarters. The view showed her a slice of the galaxy beyond the station. Stars by the millions filled the darkness. Somewhere among them was Earth, small and blue and precious. Her communication device activated silently. Admiral Chen's voice reached her, through quantum encryption that no alien technology could detect. "Elena, how are you holding up?" "They're treating us exactly as expected," Elena replied softly. "Polite but dismissive, they think we're harmless." "Good. Remember, we want them to keep thinking that. Your job is to be the perfect diplomat. Friendly, peaceful, eager to cooperate. Make them believe humanity wants nothing more than to join their club and play by their rules." Elena nodded, though the Admiral couldn't see her. "What if they reject our application? Then you come home, and we try again in a few years. But Elena, if something happens to you, if they hurt you or betray our trust, they'll learn that humanity can be something very different from what we're showing them." The connection ended, leaving Elena alone with the stars. Tomorrow would determine whether humanity joined the galaxy as friends or changed it forever as something else entirely. She hoped for friendship, but she carried authorization codes that could summon something far more terrible if hope proved insufficient. Elena Vasquez, ambassador of Earth, went to sleep dreaming of peace. She had no way of knowing that she would die the next day, and that her death would reshape the galaxy in ways no one could imagine. In the morning, she would walk into the council chambers carrying humanity's greatest wish for peaceful coexistence. She would never walk out again, and the galaxy would learn too late that some species should never be pushed too far. The council chambers could hold 5,000 beings. Today, nearly every seat was filled. Elena walked down the central aisle with her small team, feeling the weight of thousands of alien eyes upon her. Some stared with curiosity. Others showed obvious boredom. A few displayed what might have been hostility. The speaking platform stood at the center of the vast room. Above it, 3 massive screens showed the proceedings to everyone present. Elena had practiced her speech hundreds of times. She knew every word, every pause, every gesture that might help convince the galaxy that humanity deserved a place among the stars. Sub-Administrator Clicktal introduced her with minimal ceremony. The representative of the species calling themselves human will now present their petition for membership in the Galactic Council. Elena stepped onto the platform. The lights focused on her, making everything beyond the first few rows disappear into shadow. She began to speak. Honored delegates of the Galactic Council, I am Elena Vasquez, Ambassador of Earth and representative of humanity. We come before you not as conquerors or traitors, but as a people seeking to learn from your ancient wisdom and contribute what we can to the peace of the galaxy. She spoke about Earth's history, carefully avoiding the worst parts. She mentioned humanity's achievements in medicine, agriculture, and art. She offered to share knowledge that might benefit other species. She promised that humans would follow galactic law and respect the sovereignty of other worlds. We have traveled far to reach you, Elena continued, not in distance alone, but in understanding. Humanity has learned to control our violent impulses. We have chosen cooperation over conquest, diplomacy over destruction. We ask only for the chance to prove ourselves worthy of your fellowship. The response was exactly what Elena had expected. Polite silence mixed with barely hidden skepticism. She could see Kethvar military officers whispering among themselves. Their posture suggested they found her words either amusing or insulting. The Zephyrian economic delegation looked bored. One was actually reviewing trade documents during her speech. They clearly saw no profit in dealing with such a primitive species. The Veiltar representatives sat like statues, their ancient faces revealing nothing. They had heard similar speeches from hundreds of hopeful species over the millennia. Most were forgotten within decades. When Elena finished, the questioning began. It was not hostile, but it was thorough. The delegates wanted to know about human, military capabilities, technological advancement, economic systems, and political stability. Elena answered honestly but carefully, revealing only what Earth had authorized her to share. General Thakmor of the Kethvar Empire rose to ask his questions. He was massive even by Kethvar standards, his red uniform decorated with the symbols of dozens of military campaigns. His voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. Ambassador Vasquez, your species claims to have abandoned warfare in favor of peace. Yet our intelligence suggests humans have been involved in multiple, armed conflicts within your own solar system. How do we know you will not bring this violence to the wider galaxy? Elena had expected this question. General Thakmor, you are correct that humanity has not always been peaceful. We have fought wars, sometimes terrible ones, but we have learned from our mistakes. Our conflicts in recent decades have been small and quickly resolved through diplomacy. We seek to join the galaxy precisely because we believe cooperation serves everyone better than conflict. Thakmor's expression suggested he found her answer inadequate. Peace often exists only until resources become scarce, or interests conflict. What happens when humanity's needs clash with those of established species? Then we will follow galactic law and seek mediation through proper channels, Elena replied. We have no desire to challenge anyone's rightful place in the galaxy. The general sat down, but Elena could see he was not satisfied. She suspected his opposition would be significant in the final vote. The formal hearing continued for 6 hours. Elena answered every question with patience and honesty. She showed no frustration when delegates asked the same things multiple times. She remained friendly even when some speakers were openly dismissive. Finally, the session ended. Elena was told the council would debate her presentation and vote within 3 days. She and her team were escorted back to their quarters to wait. That went about as well as we could have hoped, David said once they were alone. Most of the questions were routine. Even the hostile ones weren't unexpected. Elena nodded, but she felt uneasy. Something about General Thakmor's questions had bothered her. They seemed designed to establish human capabilities rather than genuine concerns about peaceful intentions. I'm going to walk around the station, she announced. I want to get a better feel for the mood among the delegates. Commander Walsh frowned. Ma'am, I should accompany you. Security protocols suggest. Jim, This is a diplomatic station protected by the most advanced security in the galaxy. What could happen to me here? Elena left her quarters and wandered the station's public areas. The commercial district bustled with activity as traders from across the galaxy conducted business. She stopped at a Zephyrian cafe and ordered something called starfruit nectar. It tasted like sunshine mixed with electricity. As she sat alone, Elena overheard conversations in languages her translation implant could barely follow. Most ignored her completely. A few alien merchants tried to sell her exotic goods at prices that would bankrupt small planets. She politely declined everything. Near the entertainment district, Elena noticed a group of Kethvar officers talking quietly among themselves. Something about their posture suggested secrecy. She couldn't hear their words, but their body language spoke of conspiracy. Elena's unease grew stronger. She activated her hidden communicator and left a message for Admiral Chen. Day 1 complete. Formal hearing went as expected. Some concerns about Kethvar intentions will report again tomorrow. She returned to her quarters and tried to sleep, but rest would not come. Elena found herself staring out at the stars, wondering if she was missing something important. The second day brought informal meetings with various delegations. Elena spent hours in small conference rooms answering the same questions and making the same promises. Some species seemed genuinely interested in humanity. Others were clearly going through the motions. The Kethvar delegation never requested a meeting. On the third day, the formal vote was scheduled. Elena dressed carefully in her best diplomatic uniform. She had done everything possible to present humanity in the most favorable light. Now the decision rested with beings she had never met from worlds she had never seen. Elena entered the council chambers early. The voting session would be public, allowing her to observe the proceedings. She took her assigned seat in the observer section and watched as delegates filed in. The chamber filled slowly. Elena noticed that security seemed heavier than usual. More guards were visible, and several carried scanning devices she hadn't seen before. When she asked a nearby official about the increased security, she was told it was standard procedure for voting sessions. The voting began with ceremonial speeches from the 3 major powers. The Veiltar spoke about the importance of careful consideration when adding new species to the galactic community. The Zephyrians discussed economic implications and trade potential. The Kethvar warned about security concerns and the need for proven stability. Elena listened with growing dread. The speeches suggested her application would be rejected. Too many delegates seemed concerned about humanity's unknowns and potential risks. Then General Thakmor stood to address the chamber. He spoke about the need for caution when dealing with aggressive species that might threaten galactic peace. He mentioned intelligence reports suggesting human military capabilities were greater than officially stated. He questioned whether humanity could truly be trusted. I therefore propose that the human application be not merely rejected, but that their species be quarantined to their home system until they can prove themselves truly peaceful, he announced. Elena felt her heart sink. Quarantine would mean complete isolation. No trade, no communication, no chance to demonstrate humanity's peaceful intentions. It would be a death sentence for Earth's hopes of joining galactic civilization. The debate that followed was intense. Some delegates supported Thakmor's proposal. Others argued it was too harsh. A few spoke in favor of accepting humanity's application. But Elena could see the momentum building against her species. As the debate reached its climax, Elena noticed something strange. Several Kethvar officers had positioned themselves around the chamber. They carried what looked like standard security equipment, but something about their placement seemed wrong. Elena's soldier instinct screamed danger. She stood up and started moving toward the exit. If something was wrong, she needed to get her team to safety. The explosion came without warning. The quantum disruptor bomb had been hidden in the station's power distribution system. When it detonated, it released enough energy to vaporize everything within a 100-meter radius. The blast was designed to look like an overload in the human ship's experimental power core. Elena Vasquez died instantly, along with 212 other The message reached Earth 3 days after the explosion. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the war room deep beneath the Pacific Defense Complex, reading the official notification from the Galactic Council. Her face remained calm, but everyone present could see the storm building behind her eyes. Ambassador Vasquez and her entire team are confirmed dead, she announced to the assembled military leaders. The Galactic Council claims they died in a terrorist bombing. They say the bomb was built using human technology. They voted to quarantine our entire species. The room erupted in angry voices. Generals demanded immediate military response. Intelligence chiefs questioned the official story. Politicians called for diplomatic protests. Admiral Chen raised her hand, and silence fell instantly. "We will respond appropriately," she said. "But first we need to know exactly what happened." Dr. Elizabeth Harper, Director of Quantum Intelligence, stepped forward. She was a small woman with tired eyes who rarely spoke in military meetings. When she did speak, everyone listened. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the data from our hidden monitoring stations around the Council facility. The quantum resonance patterns don't match the official story. The explosion signature is wrong for our technology." Chen nodded. "How long do you need to find the truth?" "Give me full access to our quantum intelligence network. I'll have answers in 72 hours. Those 72 hours changed everything. Dr. Harper's team worked without rest, processing data through quantum computers hidden across human space. These machines were humanity's greatest secret, capable of calculations that would take alien supercomputers centuries to complete. They had been quietly observing galactic communications for decades, waiting for the day they might be needed. The breakthrough came on the second day. A junior analyst named Marcus Webb discovered an anomaly in the HFY military communication network. A single transmission had been sent using an outdated encryption method, probably by mistake. "Dr. Harper, you need to see this," Marcus said, his voice shaking. "It's a message from General Thakmore to someone called Operation Cleansing. The timestamp is 6 hours before the explosion." Dr. Harper read the decoded message. Her face went white. "Get Admiral Chen immediately." Within an hour, the war room was filled again. Dr. Harper stood before the wall display, showing the damning evidence. The message was short and direct. Phase 1 authorized. Eliminate the human representative. Ensure blame falls on target species. Proceed with quarantine vote. "There's more," Dr. Harper continued. "Once we knew what to look for, we found an entire network of communications about the operation. General Thakmore has been planning this for months. The bomb was built using HFY quantum disruptors but disguised to look like human technology. They planted Earth materials at the scene after the explosion." The room was silent as the implications sank in. Ambassador Vasquez hadn't died in a terrorist attack. She had been murdered as part of a calculated plan to frame humanity and justify their isolation. Admiral Chen studied the evidence for long minutes. When she finally spoke, her voice was deadly calm. "Show me everything." What followed was the most comprehensive intelligence analysis in human history. Dr. Harper's team cracked encryption after encryption, revealing the full scope of the HFY plot. General Thakmore had convinced his superiors that humanity represented a long-term threat to their military dominance. The quarantine wasn't just punishment for a crime humanity didn't commit. It was the first step in a plan to eventually eliminate the human species entirely. "The HFY believe our technology is more advanced than we've shown," Dr. Harper explained. "Their intelligence reports suggest they're worried about our rapid development. They think we'll become a military threat within a generation." "They're right," said General Morrison, Admiral Chen's chief of staff. "Our military capabilities are decades ahead of what we've revealed. If they knew what we really have, they'd be terrified." Admiral Chen activated the secure communication system that connected her to every major human leader on Earth and the Ya colonies. The Terran High Council convened an emergency session for only the third time in human history. President Williams appeared on the main screen from Geneva. Prime Minister Okafor joined from Lagos. Chancellor Zhang connected from Beijing. 17 other world leaders filled the display, their faces grim as they received the intelligence briefing. "The evidence is clear," Admiral Chen concluded. Ambassador Vasquez was murdered. We've been framed for a crime we didn't commit. The galaxy has condemned us based on lies. The question now is, how do we respond? The debate that followed lasted 6 hours. Some leaders called for releasing the evidence and demanding justice through diplomatic channels. Others wanted to accept the quarantine and wait for galactic attitudes to change. A few suggested limited military action against those directly responsible. President Williams spoke for many when she said, "We've spent centuries learning to control our violent nature. We've chosen peace over war at every opportunity. We sent Elena to the galaxy with hope in her heart and friendship in her hands. They murdered her for it. The question," added Prime Minister Okafor, "is whether we respond as the peaceful species we've tried to become, or as the warriors we've always been capable of being." Admiral Chen had remained silent through most of the debate. Now she stood and addressed the council. "With respect, leaders, I believe we're asking the wrong question. The question isn't whether we choose peace or war. The galaxy has already made that choice for us. They've declared us enemies and cut us off from civilization. The question is, what kind of enemies will we be?" Chancellor Zhang leaned forward. "Explain, Admiral." "We have 3 options. First, we can accept the quarantine and hope that someday the truth comes out and we're welcomed back. This could take centuries if it happens at all. Second, we can reveal our evidence and try to restore our reputation through diplomacy. This assumes the galaxy will listen to species they've already condemned. Third, we can show them the truth about humanity in a way they can't ignore." "You're talking about war," President Williams said. "I'm talking about justice," Chen replied. "They murdered our ambassador. They framed us for terrorism. They've isolated us from the galaxy based on lies. Every day we wait, General Thakmore and his conspirators grow stronger. Every day we do nothing, they prepare their next move against us." The vote was closer than anyone expected. In the end, it came down to a single question. What would Elena Vasquez want them to do? "Elena believed in peace," President Williams said, "but she also believed in justice. She was a soldier before she was a diplomat. She understood that sometimes the only way to preserve peace is to fight for it." The final vote was unanimous. Admiral Chen was given full authorization to respond to the assassination in whatever manner she deemed necessary. The full resources of human military research were placed at her disposal. The secret weapons programs that had been quietly developing for decades were activated. "How long do you need to prepare?" President Williams asked. "The preparation was completed years ago," Chen replied. "We've been planning for the possibility of galactic conflict since we first detected alien civilizations. Elena's mission was our preferred outcome, but we always had alternatives." Dr. Harper stepped forward. "Admiral, what should I tell the Quantum Intelligence Network?" Chen's smile was cold as winter space. "Tell them to prepare a message for broadcast on all galactic frequencies. We're going to give General Thakmore and his friends exactly what they wanted. They were afraid humanity might become a threat. They were right to be afraid." The message that went out 12 hours later was simple and direct. It contained the complete evidence of Kethvar guilt, along with communication intercepts proving the conspiracy. But the evidence was only the beginning. To the Galactic Council and all member species, the message began. "You have received the proof of your error. Ambassador Elena Vasquez was murdered by General Thakmore of the Kethvar Empire. We were framed for this crime. You condemned us based on lies. We understand now that you do not wish us to join your civilization through peace. You have chosen war. We accept your choice." The final portion of the message chilled every alien leader who heard it. "You killed our ambassador. You blamed us for your crime. You cut us off from your civilization. We understand now that you do not want peace. You have chosen war. We accept. Prepare yourselves. Humanity is coming." General Thakmore was in his private office on the Kethvar homeworld when he received the message. He read it twice, then checked the evidence files. His face went pale as he realized the humans had cracked military encryption that was supposed to be unbreakable. But he wasn't worried. Humanity had perhaps 100 ships and limited technology. The Kethvar Empire controlled thousands of worlds and commanded millions of warriors. Even if the humans tried to fight, they would be crushed within days. General Thakmor was about to learn that some assumptions can be fatal. 3 days after the message was broadcast, human ships began appearing in Kethvar space. They didn't come through the known hyperspace routes. They materialized out of quantum tunnels that shouldn't have existed. They appeared simultaneously in 47 different star systems. The war for the galaxy had begun, and the galaxy was about to discover. The first Kethvar to die was Captain Vectar, commander of the orbital defense platform above the military world of Drakmor. He was drinking his morning stimulant and reviewing routine patrol reports when reality tore open 3 kilometers from his station. The human ship that emerged from the quantum tunnel was unlike anything in Kethvar military databases. It was black as space itself, covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift and move. No visible weapons, no obvious armor, nothing that suggested the terrible power it contained. "Unknown vessel, you are in violation of Kethvar space," Captain Vectar transmitted. "Identify yourself or be destroyed." The response came not in words, but in action. The human ship fired a single weapon that Captain Vectar's instruments couldn't even detect. The orbital platform simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, housing 3,000 Kethvar warriors. The next moment, there was only empty space and glowing particles. Similar scenes played out across 47 Kethvar systems simultaneously. Human ships appeared without warning, destroyed key military targets with impossible weapons, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. In the first hour of the war, humanity eliminated 200 Kethvar installations without losing a single ship. General Thakmor stood in the war room of the Kethvar High Command, staring at reports that made no sense. Human ships were appearing and disappearing at will. Their weapons worked by unknown principles. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything the galaxy had seen. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our intelligence said they had primitive ships and limited capabilities." Admiral Zekthon, his chief military advisor, studied the tactical displays with growing horror. "Sir, I don't think those were their real ships. Everything we observed about human capabilities was carefully designed to make us underestimate them." "Are you saying they've been lying about their technology level?" "I'm saying they've been preparing for war while pretending to want peace." General Thakmor felt a cold chill run through his body. He had started this conflict believing he was eliminating a minor threat. Now he was beginning to understand that he had awakened something terrible. The second phase of the human attack came 12 hours later. This time they didn't just destroy military targets. Entire Kethvar fleets found themselves facing enemies that fought by rules no one understood. Admiral Korthak commanded the 3rd Battle Fleet, the pride of the Kethvar Empire. His 300 ships were the finest warriors in the galaxy, equipped with weapons that could crack planets and shields that had never been breached. When the humans appeared in the Veltar system, he was confident of easy victory. "All ships, battle formation Delta," he ordered. "Show these primitives how real warriors fight." The human fleet that emerged from quantum space was smaller than his own, perhaps 50 ships, their black hulls reflecting no light. Admiral Korthak smiled as he gave the order to attack. His smile died when the human ships began moving in ways that violated every law of physics. They turned without momentum, accelerated, without apparent propulsion, and phased in and out of normal space. The Kethvar weapons that should have torn them apart passed through empty space as the human ships existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The human counterattack was devastating. Their weapons ignored Kethvar shields entirely, striking directly at hull and crew. Ships that had survived 1,000 battles were torn apart in seconds. Warriors who had never known defeat died without understanding what had killed them. Admiral Korthak's flagship was the last to fall. As the human weapons tore through his ship, he managed to send a final transmission to High Command. "They're not fighting like any species we know. They're fighting like demons from the void. Stop them before they..." The transmission ended as the flagship broke apart. General Thakmor received similar reports from across the Empire. Every engagement ended the same way. Total defeat. Complete annihilation. Human forces that fought with coordination and ruthlessness that terrified veteran warriors. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked Admiral Zekthon. "In 48 hours, nearly 1,000. The humans have lost. None that we can confirm." "None?" General Thakmor stared at the tactical display. "How do you lose no ships in a galactic war?" "By fighting a war the enemy doesn't understand until it's too late." The third phase began when human forces appeared in orbit above the Kethvar homeworld itself. Not one or two ships, but a fleet of hundreds, materializing simultaneously around the planet that housed 15 billion warriors. General Thakmor stood on the balcony of the High Command building, looking up at the night sky. Human ships hung there like dark stars, visible to the naked eye. They had made no hostile moves yet, but their message was clear: surrender or die. The planetary defense grid activated automatically. Thousands of weapons platforms fired at the human fleet. Energy beams that could vaporize mountains struck the alien ships, and simply stopped. The human vessels absorbed the attacks like they were feeding on them. Then the humans began their demonstration. A single human ship descended through the atmosphere. It moved slowly, almost gently, until it hovered above the capital city. General Thakmor watched through his binoculars as the ship extended what looked like a scanning beam. The beam touched a mountain on the horizon. The mountain turned to dust, not destroyed by explosion or heat, but simply converted to its component atoms and scattered on the wind. The demonstration lasted exactly 10 seconds. When it ended, where there had been a mountain, there was now a perfectly smooth crater. The message that followed was broadcast on every communication channel on the planet. It was spoken in perfect Kethvar, in a voice that sounded almost human but carried an undertone of something vast and terrible. "General Thakmor of the Kethvar Empire, you murdered Ambassador Elena Vasquez. You framed humanity for terrorism. You convinced the galaxy to quarantine our species based on lies. We have come to collect the debt you owe us." General Thakmor activated his personal communicator. "This is General Thakmor. I'm willing to negotiate." "There will be no negotiation," the human voice replied. "You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. Every member of your government, every participant in the conspiracy, every warrior who supported the assassination will be turned over to human justice. Your military will be disbanded. Your weapons will be destroyed. Your empire will be dissolved. And if we refuse, then we will demonstrate why Ambassador Vasquez warned you that humanity had learned to control our violent nature. You will discover what happens when we choose to stop controlling it." The threat might have seemed empty coming from any other species, but General Thakmor could see the human ships in orbit. He had read the battle reports. He knew his entire military had been crushed in less than 3 days. "What guarantee do we have that you won't destroy us anyway?" he asked. "You have the word of Admiral Sarah Chen, Supreme Commander of Human Military Forces. Surrender now, and your people will live under human protection. Continue to resist, and your species will be remembered only in the historical files of races that chose to fight humanity." General Thakmor looked around the war room. His advisors stared at tactical displays showing the complete destruction of their forces. His intelligence chiefs reviewed reports of human capabilities that exceeded their worst fears. His political officers calculated the odds of survival if they continued fighting. The numbers were simple. Continue the war and the Kethvar species would be extinct within a week. Surrender, and they might survive as subjects of a human empire. "I need time to convince the High Council," General Thakmor said. "You have 72 hours, the human voice replied. "Choose wisely." The communication ended, leaving General Thakmor alone with the consequences of his perfect crime. He had wanted to eliminate a potential threat to Kethvar supremacy. Instead, he had awakened a sleeping giant that viewed mercy as a temporary courtesy. But the humans weren't finished with just the Kethvar. Reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. Human ships were appearing in Zephyrian space, demanding the surrender of every government official who had voted for the quarantine. Veiltar systems found themselves blockaded by forces that their ancient wisdom couldn't comprehend. Minor species that had supported the isolation of humanity received visits from human negotiators carrying offers they couldn't refuse. The galaxy was learning that humanity's greatest lie hadn't been about their technology or their military strength. It had been about their capacity for forgiveness. Ambassador Vasquez had carried genuine hope for peaceful coexistence. Her death had killed that hope and replaced it with something far more terrible. General Thakmor spent the next 72 hours trying to find a way out of the trap he had created. His military was destroyed. His allies were abandoning him. His own government was preparing to hand him over to the humans, rather than face total annihilation. On the third day, he stood once again on his balcony, looking up at the human ships. A single transport was descending toward the capital. He knew it was coming for him. General Thakmor, architect of humanity's greatest tragedy, prepared to face the justice he had tried so hard to avoid. He had killed an ambassador. He had framed an entire species. He had started a war. 2 years after the assassination of Ambassador Elena Vasquez, the Galactic Council chambers had been rebuilt. The new structure rose from the ruins of the old station, but everything about it had changed. The architecture was still beautiful, but it carried an undertone of strength that hadn't existed before. Human engineering had created something that was both elegant and utterly defensible. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the center of the vast circular chamber, wearing the simple blue uniform that Elena Vasquez had died in. Pinned to her collar was Elena's diplomatic badge, polished until it gleamed like a star. Around her, representatives from 847 species sat in perfect silence. The galaxy had learned many things in the past 2 years. They had learned that human technology was centuries ahead of what they had revealed. They had learned that human military doctrine was based on principles that made traditional warfare obsolete. Most importantly, they had learned that humanity's greatest strength had never been their weapons or their ships. It had been their restraint. General Thakmor of the former Kethvar Empire, Admiral Chen called out, "Step forward." The creature that shuffled into the center of the chamber bore little resemblance to the proud warrior who had orchestrated Elena's murder. Thakmor had aged decades in 2 years. His red uniform had been replaced with the simple gray clothing of a prisoner. His rank insignia were gone, replaced by the identification number of a war criminal awaiting final judgment. Admiral Chen studied him for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried to every corner of the chamber. "You stand accused of the murder of Ambassador Elena Vasquez, conspiracy to commit terrorism, falsification of evidence, and crimes against galactic peace. How do you respond?" Thakmor's voice was barely a whisper. "Guilty, Admiral. Guilty to all charges." The chamber remained silent. There were no gasps of surprise, no murmurs of shock. Everyone present had seen the evidence. The quantum intelligence networks had revealed every detail of the conspiracy. Thakmor's guilt was beyond question. "Tell this assembly why you killed our ambassador," Admiral Chen ordered. Thakmor raised his head with obvious effort. I feared that humanity would become a threat to Kethvar military dominance. Your technology was advancing too, quickly. Your species was too adaptable. I convinced myself that eliminating you before you became strong was the right choice. And now? Now I understand that we were never the strongest species in the galaxy. We were simply the ones you allowed to believe we were strong. Ambassador Vasquez came to you seeking peace, and we murdered her for it. We chose war with the one species that could have been our greatest ally." Admiral Chen nodded slowly. "General Thakmor, you are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment on the human world of Alcatraz 7. You will spend the rest of your existence contemplating the cost of your perfect crime. Your empire is dissolved. Your people will be resettled under human protection. Your military is disbanded forever." She paused and looked around the chamber. "Let this be a lesson to all species present. Ambassador Vasquez died because we trusted too easily. We believed that galactic civilization wanted peace, We were wrong. You taught us that in this galaxy, only strength is respected. We have learned your lesson well. The trial was only the beginning. Over the following months, the galaxy watched as humanity reshaped interstellar civilization according to principles Elena Vasquez would never have approved of. The Galactic Council still existed, but its decisions were now subject to human approval. Species could still govern themselves, but under human oversight. Trade could continue, but according to human regulations. The Zephyrian Trade Consortium, which had controlled galactic commerce for millennia, found their monopolies broken overnight. Human economic algorithms redistributed wealth according to principles the Zephyrians couldn't understand or counter. Their merchant princes became middle managers in a system they no longer controlled. The Veiltar hegemony, oldest of the galactic powers, discovered that their ancient wisdom meant nothing to a species that had mastered technologies beyond their comprehension. Their most sacred texts were analyzed by human quantum computers and found to contain mathematical errors that had persisted for thousands of years. But humanity's true genius lay not in how they conquered, but in how they ruled. They didn't destroy alien cultures or enslave alien populations. Instead, they simply made it impossible for any species to threaten others. Weapons of mass destruction were confiscated. Military forces were limited to police actions. Conflicts between species were resolved by human arbitrators whose decisions couldn't be appealed. Ambassador David Park, Elena's former aide, had survived the assassination only because he had been ill that day. Now he served as humanity's Minister of Galactic Affairs, a position that made him the most powerful non-military human in known space. The irony is almost unbearable, he told Admiral Chen during one of their weekly meetings. Elena wanted nothing more than to join galactic civilization as equals. Now we run it as masters. Admiral Chen stood at the window of her office, looking out at the orbital shipyards where human vessels were under construction. The new ships were even more advanced than the ones that had crushed the Kethvar Empire. Humanity was preparing for threats that might come from beyond the galaxy's borders. Elena got her wish, Chen replied. Humanity did join galactic civilization. We just decided to own it instead of joining it as junior partners. Do you think she would approve of what we've become? Chen considered the question carefully. Elena was a soldier before she was a diplomat. She understood that sometimes the only way to preserve peace is to make war impossible. Would she approve of our methods? Probably not. Would she approve of our results? Look around, David. There hasn't been a single interstellar war since we took control. No species is threatening to exterminate another. No one is planning terrorist attacks or assassinations. The galaxy is more peaceful now than it's been in 10,000 years. Because they're afraid of us. Because they respect us. Fear fades, David. Respect endures. David wasn't entirely convinced, but he couldn't argue with the results. Human rule had brought stability to a galaxy that had known nothing but conflict and competition for millennia. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now working together on human-sponsored projects. Technologies that had been hoarded by individual races were now shared for the benefit of all. The greatest change was visible in the council chambers themselves. When Elena had first addressed the assembly, the various species had sat in rigid hierarchies based on military strength, economic power, and ancient precedent. The strong had dominated the weak, the rich had exploited the poor, and the old had condescended to the young. Now representatives sat in a pattern determined by human algorithms that balanced population, resources, technological advancement, and cultural contributions. No species was more important than another because humanity guaranteed the rights of all. The Kethvar, despite their fall from power, still had voices in the council. The weakest species enjoyed the same protections as the strongest. There's something else Elena would have approved of, Admiral Chen continued. We're exploring beyond the galaxy's borders. 3 long-range expeditions have already departed for the Andromeda Galaxy. We're carrying her message of peaceful contact to civilizations that have never heard of the Galactic Council. And if they react the way our galaxy did, if they try to eliminate us as threats, Chen's smile was cold as the space between stars. Then they'll learn the same lesson our galaxy learned. Humanity offers friendship first, but we only offer it once. As the second anniversary of Elena's death approached, humanity prepared for the memorial ceremony that had become the galaxy's most important holiday. Representatives from every species would gather to honor the woman whose death had changed everything. The ceremony would begin with Admiral Chen reading Elena's final speech, the one she had planned to give if her application for membership had been accepted. It spoke of cooperation, understanding, and the hope that different species could work together for the betterment of all. Then Admiral Chen would read humanity's response to the galaxy's choice to murder their ambassador. You killed our hopes for peaceful coexistence. You forced us to choose between extinction and conquest. We chose conquest. The galaxy is ours now not because we wanted it, but because you made it necessary. But the ceremony would end with Elena's own words, preserved in the recordings from her final transmission to Earth. I still believe that peace is possible. I still believe that different species can learn to trust each other. I still believe that the galaxy can be a place where cooperation triumphs over conflict. Admiral Chen had added her own conclusion to Elena's message. Ambassador Vasquez died believing in peace. We honor her memory by making peace the only option available. As Admiral Chen prepared for the memorial ceremony, she reflected on the price of humanity's victory. They had gained control of the galaxy, but lost their innocence. They had achieved peace, but through the threat of overwhelming force. They had joined galactic civilization, but as conquerors rather than partners. Elena Vasquez had succeeded in her mission after all. Humanity had joined the galactic community. They had simply decided that the